If you were someone who's a bit rubbish with money, what's the one thing you would suggest someone could start doing today to start changing that?
So if you are someone who says about yourself, I am rubbish with money, that in itself is the place to start, the language. It's understanding the language that you currently use about money and about your financial situation. It's such a big teller of your money beliefs and your relationship with money. If you're always saying, I am rubbish with money, you will always be rubbish with money. It's like that, I think it was a quote by Henry Ford. It's like, if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you can't, or something like that. It's if you think you can or can't, you're right. So it's basically like whatever you say, you're going to be right.
It's true. You self-prophesize it.
Yeah. And like, I'm a massive believer that like your words literally create your reality. Words are so powerful. So really just starting to understand the language. And if you are like, yep, oh, guilty, that is me, I always say it. It really is as simple to start as changing your language. So instead of saying I'm rubbish at money, changing it to something like I'm good with money. But caveat to that in itself is an affirmation, like a money affirmation. I am good with money. If you don't feel it and you're saying, I am good with money, but inside you're like, your brain is like eye rolling and it's like, no, you're not. You can do money, like more neutral affirmations or money suggestions. So like you would say, I am learning to be good with money. Because that way it's a work in progress. So you're no longer saying you're bad with money, but you're not saying like you're where you want to be. You're in the process of learning, which allows you to make mistakes and make errors, but reminds your brain that you're a work in progress and you're always going to be kind of assessing and becoming conscious of your behavior with money. So starting with your language is going to be like, I believe, one of the biggest kind of helps. And then that allows you to go into more money mindset work and understanding your beliefs and your money story and all that magical stuff that I love. But yeah, starting with your language is going to be the most powerful thing.
And if you're someone who's on that journey, you're down the path, you've got a better mindset, you're doing well with your money, you've got a nice budget going, what can they do to sort of level up?
So I think now I am a big advocate for investing and growing your money. So if you are someone who you feel like you've got your money management down and you're like, maybe you're saving or you're clearing debt and you're like, you're plodding along, you're having a nice time, you're on that journey.
Yeah.
I think learning and educating yourself around investing and how to grow your money is one of the best ways to level up, because I think it's one of the biggest things that isn't even like touched upon when you first get into kind of like financial education at a younger point. You're taught, or you're not taught, but budgeting is spoken about, saving, spending, but like investing is just like always left off of the table.
Yeah.
Like I had my own kind of journey with investing where I had all this money saved. I had like 25k sat in a bank account and I was like, love seeing it. I was like, so much money. And I went on a date and this guy was like, oh, you do know that by having your money like sat in a bank account, you're losing money?
Yeah. When I learned that blew my damn mind.
I literally this is no joke. I can remember where I was sitting. I was literally down the road, sat in one of the bars on down there.
Love it.
Sat in the garden. We just had a pizza. I just remember it because I remember being like, what?
Yeah.
I'm so good with my money. What do you mean I'm losing money? And he gave me like the most pathetic attempt at explaining it. But I was like, thank you for at least introducing me to that. And I went and I did some research, realized how confusing the language was. But because I had this kind of like want to learn and I was already kind of starting to get into the finance space, I like persisted. I was like, I'm not going to let this get the better of me. And I found this amazing piece of research which was about women and money, and it spoke all about why women are better investors but don't have as much to invest and all this. Posted it on Instagram. Someone came back to me and was like, oh, I agree with you, the language is really confusing. And he was a wealth manager and he was like, do you want me to just sit down and explain it to you? I was like, absolutely. So we met for a beer, was with him for a couple of hours, and I asked all the questions.
Wow.
I was like, so what's this? What's this? How does this work? What? And he like broke it down for me.
That's amazing.
Great guy.
That's
Great
so
guy.
good. So just quickly, for people who maybe don't know, what do you mean when you say your money is losing value?
So
in a savings account.
In a savings account. So the thing is, right, at the moment, especially inflation, it's being talked about everywhere. Even as someone, so for me, when I first was in the kind of finance world, I just kind of ignored that inflation was a thing. I just was oh, it's just this word. Oh yeah, I don't
who
really
cares?
Yeah, inflation.
Fine.
Yeah, inflation. Like, But essentially, inflation is when the costs of services and products go up over a longer period of time, which means that when you have money sat there in cash, if you're not earning an interest, so you're not making money on it that beats inflation, you're losing money. So basically, I always like to explain it as if you have £1,000 that you saved last year, it could buy you a trolley full of 100 items. That same £1,000 this year, so it's sat there, it's not doing anything, it's not gone, it's not, you're not spent it, would buy you a trolley of 98 items. So you're getting less value out of that money. Mm-hmm. And usually if you have your money sat in a savings account, when inflation is higher, which it is at the moment, you're losing the buying power of that money, so you can buy less with that money. Now, obviously, if you are saving for something short term, like a holiday or a car, or you're going to be buying a property soon or whatever it is, naturally you do have to have your money sat there in cash because you need access to it.
Yeah.
But when we're thinking long term, 10, 15 years down the line, and also you don't need that money specifically for anything, you want to think about how to grow your money so that it's not losing its buying power. So essentially you're beating inflation is part of something I'm really, really passionate about. So yeah, I think if you're going back to that question, if you are someone who's like, yeah, I feel like I'm quite good with my money, I'm saving, I'm kind of know where I'm heading, educate yourself on investing.
And as you say, today it could just be like reading a guide on investing. It doesn't have to be like drop £1,000 on Tesla stocks.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be do that. Yeah. That is not an endorsement, by the way. It doesn't have to be that extreme. Candid moment. Tell us about a money mistake you made and how we could avoid it from what you've learned from it.
So a money mistake that I've made, I mean, one of the most recent ones was to do with investing, and I jumped on a bandwagon that I didn't need to jump on.
Ooh, dangerous game.
Dangerous game. I don't know why I did it. It was that I was getting FOMO. I was getting like excited about it, and like my friend was like sending stuff to me, and I was like, yeah, I think we should invest. Like it was one of those moments. But I don't invest in individual stocks, really.
Yeah.
So it went completely against my investing game plan. It was so out of character for me, but I really just jumped on the hype, and I invested, luckily, a small amount. And I lost it all because I don't know what I was doing. I was trying to, sell, buy when it was low, sell when it was high, but I don't agree with that kind of financial game plan for investing. And yet I just did it. So I only lost a couple of £100, luckily, like it wasn't a huge amount of money for me at the time.
Yeah.
And it was a lesson. I had to learn the lesson. I was like, don't jump on the bandwagon of all that stuff, because I didn't do it with the motive of like, oh, this really works with my strategy. I was like, oh, I wanted to get involved.
Yeah.
And it backfired. It can be so easy to get kind of wrapped up in what other people are doing. And one of my favorite things to talk about is financial goals, but making sure that they're your own. Not everybody has to own a house. Not everybody has to run a business. Not everybody has to travel. Like, figure out what it is that you really, really want and then go after that.
If someone was really stressed about money, what would be your sort of top tips for them?
So I think first of all, it's identifying the stress points.
Yeah.
What is it that's actually causing your stress? Because sometimes it is that financially, maybe you need a higher income, maybe your bills are too high and there's actually something like practical going on. Mm-hmm. But sometimes the stress is purely coming from an emotional place. So I've had it before with clients where they've said, I feel really stressed about money. And then we create a budget, we look through their money, but they've got savings, they don't have any debt, they've got a good job. And the stress is coming from an emotional place with the connection to money. So it's really interesting of like, identify first where that's coming from. Now it's a bit of like a catch-22, like as in you're not always going to be able to identify the stress until you start doing some of the things.
Sure.
So on a practical level, it's like, make sure you've got a budget, literally figure out exactly where your money is going. Know on a monthly basis how much you have coming in. And it's easier if you have a wage and you're like a 9 to 5 or you've got set hours. Yeah. If you are someone who is freelance or self-employed or does like zero hours contract.
Yeah.
You can kind of look back over the last few months and go, what roughly do I make? Or what is the lowest amount I've made? Just to give yourself an idea.
Yeah.
And then really just get to know like, what bills have I got going out? Because a lot of the time people's stress comes from not knowing where their money goes and not knowing when they're going to tap their card, if it's going to reject it or not. Not knowing that if a bill's about to come out next week, if they actually have the money for it. And it's really easy to ostrich and stick your head in the sand and be like, I just don't want to look in my bank. I don't want to create a budget because I don't want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
But actually, the awareness of your finances is like half the problem. Like they always say, when a problem is written down, half of the problem is solved. And then I always like to kind of talk through like money prompts, like journal prompts. So really starting to understand on an emotional level, like how you feel about what's going on, because sometimes we do just catastrophize. Like I do that. You know, I run my own business. I pay my own wages. I live in London. Like we all know how expensive it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I get really stressed out and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, blah, blah, what can I afford my bills? I go, oh wow, I'm literally just catastrophizing. And I love just saying and asking yourself, what is one thing that I can control right now? Is it as simple as creating a budget, doing a bit of journaling? Maybe you just need a bath. Or maybe you just need a good night out.
Yeah.
You know, like, not always, but like really starting to understand and like figuring out what is in your control.